Well, I'm very sorry to say, but the medical system is rotten to the core. There are maybe, yeah, some good doctors, but if they're oblivious to what the crooked ones are doing, and the crooked ones are getting away with doing whatever they want, well then, obviously, they're dumbasses. No, I mean, it's not complicated. People don't just go and talk languages they don't remember learning, except, through very faded memories. People don't go describing areas and places and people giving information just like that. It's like, no, I believe in God. I believe, God can do anything. But it's obvious that my brain was programmed. And it's obvious because these things I would do under hypnotism or in my multiple personalities after they traumatized me so many times, I ended up doing in the conscious, in the everyday, in the main personality. And, part of the cause is, it's a natural thing. It does happen. And from that first time when my personality split because I was being raped and tortured, from that point on, the subconscious part, the part that's the multiple personality, was sending signals to the rest of the brain. It was literally pushing the memories back in slowly. Because you see, one of the things that happens is that these things are so traumatizing, they have to be super violent. And actually, one of the parts I remember, and it was very violent, that I remember this right from the start. But it just didn't seem like anybody cared. And since I got blamed for everything, and then kicked out of town, I couldn't do much about it. And I was hard to express. So, the thing is, I remembered Stanley. I remembered being on his lap in the living room. And I remember him torturing me by putting my leg behind my head or twisting them together. And I remember this avidly. I remember it perfectly because I remember that when it was happening, I was semi-conscious at certain moments because it was so painful. But the problem is, I couldn't really react except to moan. I could hardly do anything else. I was defenseless. And the brain was slowly putting these memories back into my head, put them back in. And they were trying to repress it. Because things got really messy. You have to imagine a man having his kids taken away from him and his face. You have to imagine a man being ripped out of his home to have his head played with. There's no doubt that this made things worse. And more personalities got created. And more, and more, and more, and more. And I'm sure it got ugly. And I'm sure it got messy. I don't have a doubt about it because I started remembering this about a year ago. But I'm not ashamed of it. Why would I be ashamed of it? What? They were violating my rights? They were wrong first. Get out of my life. Get out of my house. Get out of my head. Was that clear enough? But no. They wanted more. They wanted revenge. So they just made things worse and worse and worse and worse and worse consecutively and phenomenally worse. Seriously. To the point of sticking me in jails. With psychopaths. In jail cells with psychopaths. And giving these fucking psychopaths weapons. Sticking me in a yard. In a prison yard. I remember. And I could describe it. And I could give you details. No problem. That's a cinch. Seriously. They destroy, for the most part, my short-term memory. I was very good at memorizing things when I was younger. I was still able to do it in my early 30s. But they just got more vicious and vicious and vicious. And literally just ruined that. So much so that most of the things that come through into my main personality are all the multiple personalities. Everything I do, everything I say. So basically, everybody that knows me for the past 15 or so years has basically been getting a dose of that. And in the last 10, completely. Or almost. More like in the last 7 or 8. All these habits that I picked up with my multiple personalities, and they're defenses. They're defenses. They're defenses. What can I do? It's automatic. It's not like I asked for it. They started with the hypnotizing. They let these people exploit me and take me away from my home and put God knows what in my head when I was a kid. Well, it's like, okay, you would hypnotize me, I would just walk out. Okay? Well, lots of the time, that's what it was. But just not of late. So, basically, they're doing this, and then I have this event happen to me that is absolutely tragic and traumatizing. You have to imagine these things. And I started remembering more and more and more, but it was confusing. Because as I started remembering that, and in my early 20s, I started remembering all the other things that they had been doing after the fact. It was confusing. And there was a lot of violence. And it made me anxious. I was very anxious. I started being anxious. So, they didn't want me to remember all these things. And this horrible event, it split my personality. There's a part of me that's an automatic self-defense mechanism. And this is in a lot of people. It happens in kids. It happens in all kinds of people. And your personality splits, and it defends you. And that's the way it is. But they just kept traumatizing me. I remember that I was under a pile of other people that were drugged, other girls. I remember the smell. I remembered I was suffocating. I remembered these things throughout the years as I got older and older. But obviously, my multiple personalities were the ones that were subjected to it the most. And since they ruined that part of my brain, frontal cortex, I think that's what it is, my short-term memory, well now, everything that they knew, well, I know. Pretty much. I can have access to it easily. And there's no going back.